Thank you. So I'm going to start by saying something that is obvious. I think it's easy for any one of us to forget how many services local governments actually provide and how essential those services are. So I think fire and police are obvious, but there's zoning for affordable housing, or foreclosure prevention programs, or emergency preparedness, and really social services for families and communities. But despite the need for any of those services, city programs, we found, are often underutilized. So for example, 40,000 Philadelphians left over $100 million on the table by not applying for the Earned Income Tax Credit. And in our city, where 1 in 4 Philadelphians are facing poverty, an extra $6,300 can make a huge difference. But having a program and then making sure that people know about it, or even take the action of applying for it, is something that isn't promised, and it's a common municipal challenge that we had the opportunity to address in a pilot. And so after addressing under-enrollment through piloting and testing new techniques in one department, we replicated that innovation in another department, and then another, and then another. And within a year, we established a citywide initiative called GovLab PHL, that's now engaging over 200 city employees and managing 12 experiments. And if you're a movie buff, then if Ron Burgundy was truly a real anchorman, it would be our dream for him to report that GovLab is kind of a big deal in Philadelphia. So what we did, we found new ways to enroll seniors and taxpayers in our utility assistance programs. So the department did things that we had never done before. We partnered with academics. We held focus groups to learn about the barriers to enrollment. We pre-populated the application to make that form easier to fill out. And then we tested the size and color of different envelopes to see what people would respond to. And these efforts in sum led to a 15% increase in enrollment. So imagine hundreds of senior residents who are also Philadelphia taxpayers enrolled in a program that decreased their monthly water bill and put more money in their pocket every single month. And so this pilot could be a success based on those results alone, but it's grown into so much more. And it's really important, actually, that I share with you that this innovation started in one administration and ended in another. So Jim Kenney was elected mayor in 2016 before the pilot ended. And so you can imagine that departments were facing staffing changes. There was departmental reorganization, priorities are shifting. My team and I had just been hired. We actually didn't even know one another. And we were asked to join this project team. But it was there was a lot of uncertainty about the role that we could play because it appeared like it was nearly over. The results were being analyzed. And so as people that want to look good and do a good job, we really weren't sure what we could do. So it made sense that we organize a final workshop to share with leaders in this new administration the results of this pilot. And so we orchestrated an audience of half academics and half city leaders with the intention that these two groups just listen to one another and maybe learn from one another. And so we were looking at, through breakout sessions, looking at questions like, how does this administration really impact reducing litter? How can this administration increase the equity of bike share, which is such an important mode of transportation? And so we handed out a survey at the end of the conference. And honestly, we didn't think that anybody would fill out the survey. If they did, maybe they would tell our team to have better food next time. But instead, to our surprise, 20 city agencies responded saying they want to know a little bit more about this partnership with academics. And so we got right to work. I mean, this was our opportunity to start this matchmaking between an academic institution and a city agency. Out of those 20 interested departments, 75% of those potential projects ended up not moving forward, which felt at the time like a huge failure. But we didn't give up. We kept facilitating these conversations, and we worked with 5 departments to address challenges like communicating with our license holders, or improving the equity of bike share, or reducing litter and increasing recycling. We tested things like postcards or simple reminders, and Some experiments ended up with null results, but we've learned and taught each other that you don't run away from that. So we did test recycling bins with lids, and litter decreased in one neighborhood and it didn't in another. But we learned from that. And we tested messaging with license holders and sent them a simple reminder that they could register and renew their license online. That simple reminder increased registration by 19%. 5 months into our work, our efforts were published in the paper for the first time. And for my team and I, this was so risky because at the time we didn't have any results. All we had were the questions that we were asking about our government. In addition to managing specific pilot projects, it's been really important to us that we continue to engage city employees on this conversation around data and evidence. And so we said, hey, let's start a book club in Philadelphia. We put an announcement in the city newsletter, and over 100 employees signed up to read our first book. It blew us away. We've been testing with workshops on bringing design thinking to city government. And we tested Twitter. So we started GovLab PHL on Twitter. Didn't know what we should share. We were posting pictures of ourselves in meetings. Nobody cared. No one cared. And then we thought, we have so many partners, let's acknowledge our partners. And we call them GovLab champs. And people loved this content. And so we still continue to test. We support other people's work. And we really are putting a face on who GovLab PHL is. We held a second conference the next year, and we did have preliminary results. But what shocked us was that people were more interested in the relationships that we had formed. How did academics and city leaders agree on the problem and then on the design to find a solution? There was, whoops, let's go back. So there was never a point in anything that we did where we knew that it was going to be worth people's time or that it would work. We never knew that. We just kept taking actions and we kept believing in the work because we knew that there's value in piloting and in testing, and there's value in partnerships. And so again, we kept trying, and now we're engaging with over 200 city employees. We have a multi-agency team in city government. We have 10 academic partners, and we're managing 12 experiments to pilot, test, and improve city programs. And this is GovLab PHL. It is not easy to do innovation work within government. It's scary, it's uncertain, and it will make you feel like you're not really doing anything sometimes. But there are 6 lessons that we've learned along the way that I want to share with you today. So our GovLab members, our city employees, sit in various departments across the administration. So from revenue to technology, policy to innovation, and operations. And we rotate who leads each meeting. And the reason for this is because every member then gets this opportunity to invest in the group and to lead discussion and to be a leader. And for us, this is what's facilitating innovation across city government in Philadelphia, as opposed to one department or with one person. Mutually beneficial partnerships is so, so important to us. So, for example, the Lang Center at Swarthmore College and the Fels Institute at Penn fund year-round fellows for us. And while some people might not know what to do with a 19-year-old undergraduate student, we put them to work. So our GovLab fellows have drafted over 50% of our research protocols. And in return, academics have the opportunity to help solve really complex challenges that government is dealing with. They're building the evidence base, both locally and in academic journals, and they get to directly engage their students in local government. So every partnership that we are managing is different. Some departments need more support with thinking through a research question. Other departments need help pulling appropriate data. And again, other departments need help just thinking through how do you actually do a pilot trial. So when needed, my staff and I in the mayor's office organize the extra hands to either randomize data, design a postcard, or we might even be out there ourselves distributing the recycling bins for an experiment. The only way that we have been able to move forward is by creating a very plain and shared language. So academics have been in meetings and started to use terms like cognitive dissonance theory or hyperbolic discounting, and everyone is scared to say that they don't know what that means. But city employees are just as guilty because we have so many acronyms in city government. And here's one, for example. So all of us, no one's going to know what this means, all of us are becoming very mindful that how important it is to make sure that when everyone's at the table, we're using a very plain language so that everyone knows what's going on. Every project that this is so important. Every project that we are engaged in require review by the Institutional Review Board, and it requires legal review. And so, in order to protect data, if you want to bring behavioral science or some other methodology to your city government, our advice to you is to get a lawyer and be really nice to them. Because otherwise, navigating how to protect data and not violate laws like HIPAA or local laws can take months and years to kind of figure out on your own. Last but certainly not least, in Philadelphia, we're in the midst of evaluating our summer jobs program by an amazing organization called the Philadelphia Youth Network. And through that process, we found that Black and brown youth had less relationships with existing employers, which, because of our process, more often left them without a summer job experience. And so in 2017, we randomized the relationship making, and we matched a random employer with a random student, and that in itself increased the number of Black and brown students that had a summer job experience in 2017, and we're doing it again in 2018. Philadelphia is known to be a welcoming city, and we're a city that really cares about the experience of Black and brown people as they're interacting with government. But it's not enough to just say that. So the point here is to really try and test new ways of doing your work, because you never know what's going to make the biggest difference. Benjamin Franklin, one of Philadelphia's most beloved residents, who can still be seen roaming the streets, once said, "Tell me, and I forget. Teach me, and I remember. Involve me, and I learn." By educating our peers about that initial pilot, by embedding the best practices that we've learned along the way, and then empowering new program managers in this new administration to take on projects of their own, we've been able to establish this citywide initiative called GovLab PHL. And this is just the beginning for Philadelphia. We're excited to continue to test and to pilot to improve city programming, and I want to thank you for your time and your attention today. And I look forward to talking to you later.